Dear Ray, they're planning my funeral tomorrow. My wife picked out a black dress she'll never want to wear again. My kids keep asking when Daddy's coming home. And I'm watching it all unfold from a motel room 3 states away, because I'm supposed to be dead. But I'm not dead, Ray. I'm just a coward who made the worst decision of his life. And now I don't know how to come back from the grave I dug myself. If you've ever made a choice that spiraled so far out of control you couldn't see a way back, this story will hit you hard. Hit that subscribe button if you're ready for a confession that will leave you questioning what you'd do when backed into the darkest corner. Like this video, and let's dive into a letter that shows how one desperate moment can destroy everything you love. So 3 years ago, I had everything. A thriving construction business, a beautiful home in the suburbs, 2 kids who thought I hung the moon, and Sarah, my wife of 12 years who still kissed me goodbye every morning like we were newlyweds. I was living the American dream, and I thought nothing could touch us. But dreams have a way of turning into nightmares when you're not paying attention. It started small. A few late payments from clients. Supply costs skyrocketing. Then the housing market shifted, and suddenly everyone was backing out of contracts. I kept telling myself it was temporary, that things would turn around. I started using credit to cover payroll, borrowing against the house to keep projects moving. Sarah would ask about the bills, and I'd smile and say everything was fine. The lie tasted like poison every time I spoke it. Within 18 months, I owed everyone. Banks, suppliers, subcontractors, they all wanted their money. But the worst part wasn't the legitimate debt. When you're desperate, Ray, really desperate, you make decisions that haunt you. I borrowed money from people you should never borrow money from. People who don't send collection letters. They send other kinds of messages. The first warning came on a Tuesday. I was picking up coffee before heading to a job site when 2 men approached me in the parking lot. They weren't threatening, not exactly. Just conversational. They asked about my family. Mentioned how my daughter Emma looked so cute in her soccer uniform. How my son Jake was getting so tall for a 10-year-old. They knew where Sarah worked, what time she left each morning. Just friendly conversation, one said, straightening my collar with hands that had definitely done more than friendly conversation. We like to know the families of our business associates. That night, I sat in my car outside our house for 20 minutes before going in, watching my kids through the window playing video games, completely oblivious to the storm circling our lives. Sarah was cooking dinner, humming some song she'd been stuck on all week. Normal. Perfect. Everything I was about to lose. The debt had grown to $500,000. 500,000. The number felt abstract until I wrote it down, until I saw all those zeros staring back at me. Even if I sold everything, the house, the business, my truck, I'd still owe $300,000 to people who collect debts with baseball bats and hospital visits. I couldn't sleep. Couldn't eat. Sarah noticed, of course she noticed, but I kept deflecting. Just work stress, honey. Big project coming up. More poison words. I was dying inside, Ray, literally dying from the weight of keeping the secret, but I couldn't tell her. How do you tell the woman you love that you've destroyed everything? That your family might not be safe because of choices you made? The calls started coming daily. Text messages with photos of our house. Our kids' school. Sarah's office building. Nothing explicitly threatening, just reminders. Friendly check-ins from people who owned me now. That's when the idea first crept in. Dark, impossible, desperate, but there it was. What if I just disappeared? What if there was no more debt because there was no more me? I researched it obsessively. How people fake their deaths, how investigations work, what evidence gets left behind. I told myself I was just exploring options, not actually planning anything. But late at night, when Sarah was sleeping next to me and I could hear her peaceful breathing, I was on my laptop mapping out boat launches and reading about drowning statistics. The plan crystallized over 2 weeks of sleepless nights and careful preparation. I'd stage a drowning accident during one of my solo fishing trips, something I'd done hundreds of times before, so it wouldn't seem suspicious. Lake Morrison, about 2 hours from home, deep water with strong currents. People went missing there every few years. I set up a new identity months in advance. Got a fake social security number, driver's license, even a bank account in another state. I'd been slowly moving small amounts of cash, telling Sarah I was paying down business expenses. Another lie. Another betrayal. The night before, I held my family like I was memorizing them. Emma fell asleep in my lap while we watched a movie, her little fingers wrapped around mine. Jake showed me his latest drawing, stick figures labeled "My Family," with me wearing a hard hat and Sarah with impossibly long hair. "That's so good, buddy," I whispered, knowing I'd never see another one of his drawings again. Sarah curled up against me in bed that night. "You seem different lately," she murmured against my chest. Distant. "Are we okay?" "We're perfect," I lied into her hair. "I love you more than you know." If I'd known those would be the last words I'd ever speak to her, would I have said them differently? Would I have told her the truth? The morning came too fast and not fast enough. I kissed everyone goodbye like it was any other Saturday fishing trip. Emma was still in her pajamas, hair messy from sleep. "Bring back a big fish, Daddy." Jake was playing some game on his tablet, barely looked up when I ruffled his hair. Sarah packed me a lunch like she always did, added a little note, "Catch us something delicious. Love you." I kept that note. I have it still. The drive to Lake Morrison felt like driving to my own execution. Every mile took me further from everything I loved and closer to a choice I couldn't unmake. But the alternative, watching those men hurt my family because of my failures, that felt worse than dying. I parked at the boat launch just after sunrise. The lake was empty, peaceful, morning mist rising off the water like ghosts. I inflated the small raft I'd bought with cash, loaded my fishing gear, and paddled out to the deepest part of the lake. The water was cold. Shockingly cold. For a moment, standing knee-deep in that black water, I almost turned back. Almost called Sarah and confessed everything. Almost chose truth over this elaborate lie. But I thought about those men. About their casual threats. About my family's safety depending on my disappearance. I left my clothes folded neatly on the shore. My wallet with all my identification. The fishing rod broken and floating in the shallows. The raft, deflated and tangled in some branches. And a note, written in my shaky handwriting: "I can't keep living with what I've done. Take care of each other. I'm sorry." Then I walked naked through the woods to where I'd hidden a bag of supplies and new clothes. Every step away from that lake, from my old life, felt like dying a little more. The news broke that evening. Local business owner missing, presumed drowned. I watched the coverage from a diner 2 states away, my hands shaking as I held a cup of coffee that tasted like nothing. They interviewed the park ranger who found my things. Showed aerial footage of the search boats combing the water. And then they showed Sarah. God, Ray, if you could have seen her face. She looked broken. Completely shattered. Standing outside our house with reporters pushing microphones at her, wearing the same clothes she'd worn to bed, like she'd been dragged from sleep into a nightmare. Her voice was barely a whisper. He would never leave us like this. Something happened. My husband didn't kill himself. Emma was clinging to her leg, crying. Jake stood behind them both, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him, like he was trying to disappear. My mother was there too, her face gray with shock, supporting Sarah because Sarah couldn't seem to stand on her own. I turned off the television and threw up in the diner bathroom until there was nothing left. The first week was hell. I rented a room in a small town where nobody asked questions, paid cash for everything, and watched my family's world collapse from 300 miles away. The local news ran the story every night. Search teams dragging the lake. Divers going down in the deepest parts. My business partner giving statements about how I'd seemed stressed lately but never mentioned financial troubles. Sarah did interview after interview, begging for information, refusing to believe I was dead. "He's out there somewhere," she kept saying. "I know my husband. He didn't give up on us." She was right, in a way. I hadn't given up on them, I'd given up on me. I'd chosen to become a ghost rather than face the consequences of my failures. But watching their grief was torture I hadn't anticipated. I thought it would be clean, quick. That they'd mourn and move on and be safer without me dragging them down. I was such an idiot, Ray. Grief isn't clean. It's messy and consuming and it changes you in ways you can never change back. My mother had a heart attack 2 weeks after I died. Stress-induced, the doctors said. She survived, but she looks 20 years older now. Fragile. Broken. I did that to her. Jake stopped talking almost entirely. Just sits in his room, drawing the same stick figure family over and over, but now the daddy figure is always separated from the others. Sometimes floating in blue scribbles that must be water. Sometimes just, gone from the page entirely. Emma started having nightmares. Sarah mentioned it in one of her social media posts. Yes, I follow their social media like some kind of digital stalker, feeding on scraps of information about my own family. Emma wakes up screaming that the water is going to take her too. She won't go near bathtubs, won't even drink water from clear glasses because it reminds her of the lake that ate Daddy. And Sarah. God, what I've done to Sarah. She lost 30 pounds in 2 months. Stopped showering regularly. Stopped going to work. Our neighbor, Mrs. Chen, has basically moved in to help with the kids because Sarah can't function. She just sits by the phone waiting for news that will never come, calling the police daily asking about the investigation, visiting the lake every weekend to leave flowers on the shore. She talks to me, Ray. Out loud, to empty rooms. I know because she posts videos sometimes, messages for me wherever she thinks I am. Jake lost his first tooth today. I saved it for you, just in case you come home. Emma made honor roll. You'd be so proud. You are so proud, aren't you? Wherever you are? The insurance investigation started month 3. $500,000 life insurance policy looks suspicious when you can't find a body. They've been asking questions, digging into our finances, and getting closer to discovering the debts I left behind. If they find those, if they connect the dots, Sarah won't just lose her husband, she'll lose everything. The house, the business, maybe even face fraud charges as an accomplice. I've been living under the name Michael Torres, working construction jobs for cash, staying in weekly motels and cheap apartments. The work is familiar, but nothing feels right. Food has no taste. Sleep brings nightmares where my family is drowning and I'm the one holding them underwater. I've lost 40 pounds. I look like a ghost even to myself. The worst part is how close I am. 300 miles. A 4-hour drive from tucking my kids into bed, from holding my wife, from being human again instead of this hollow thing pretending to exist. Some nights I start driving home, get halfway there before reality crashes back and I turn around. Because what's waiting for me at home now isn't forgiveness, it's consequences I'm not brave enough to face. Insurance fraud. Faking my death. The original debts, still accumulating interest. Criminal charges that would destroy what's left of my family's reputation. And those dangerous men who loaned me money? They're still out there. My death didn't erase that debt, it just transferred it to my widow. I found out last week that someone's been asking questions about Sarah. Following her to work. The same kind of friendly interest I got before I disappeared. They want their money, and now they think my grieving wife might know where I hid assets that don't exist. So I'm trapped, Ray. Trapped between two impossible choices. Stay dead and watch my family suffer for my cowardice, or come back and make everything infinitely worse. Either way, I destroy them. I've drafted a dozen letters trying to explain. Started recording videos I could never send. Practiced conversations I could never have. How do you tell your wife you've been watching her grief from the shadows? How do you explain to your children that daddy chose to make them orphans rather than face his mistakes? The insurance company made their decision yesterday. They're classifying my death as suicide and voiding the policy. Sarah gets nothing. Worse than nothing, she gets the bills I left behind. Medical debt from my mother's heart attack. Mortgage payments she can't make on her part-time income. The slow, inevitable collapse of everything we built together. She doesn't know yet. The letter is probably waiting in our mailbox right now, next to sympathy cards from people who think she's a widow instead of a woman whose husband is too much of a coward to come home. I thought I was protecting them, Ray. I thought my death would be a gift, insurance money, a clean slate, a chance for them to build something better without my failures dragging them down. But I didn't die. I just became a monster who watches his family suffer and does nothing to stop it. There's no revenge in this story, Ray. No justice. No satisfaction. Just the slow realization that some choices can't be undone, some lies are too big to ever become truth, and some love is too selfish to be called love at all. I have one chance left. One choice that might still matter. I could walk into that police station right now, confess everything, face whatever consequences are waiting. Give my family back their father, their husband, their son, even if it means losing everything else. Even if it means those dangerous men find me. Even if it means prison. Or I could stay dead. Let them grieve, let them heal, let them move on without me. Hope that somehow, someday, they build something beautiful from the ashes of what I burned down. Either way, I've learned something about love that I wish I'd never had to learn. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is face the consequences of your choices, no matter how terrifying they are. Sometimes the cruelest thing you can do to someone you love is try to protect them from the truth. What would you do, Ray? What would you tell someone trapped between two versions of hell, both of his own making? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Sometimes the wisdom of strangers is the only light in the darkness. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe for more letters that prove the most haunting stories are the ones where there are no heroes, just people making impossible choices. Until next time, remember, some secrets are too heavy to carry, and some lies are too big to live with. Thank you for reading my confession, Ray. I hope I find the courage to do what's right before it's too late.